Welcome to Online Trading Campus and welcome to our OTC Futures course Module 3 Intermediate. In Lesson 3, we define the criteria for setting up an income and wealth workspace. Before defining the criteria and requirements for our daily, weekly and monthly futures watch list, we have to cover open interest and the difference between volume and open interest. So let's get right into it. During a recent live trading class, a good question came up about identifying the front month contract in the futures market. The question was, is volume all I need to look at to determine when a contract is ready to roll over? So let's recap the whole process quickly. All futures contracts have an expiration date. During the life of all futures contracts, usually the last couple of months before expiration, they will be the most actively traded contract of all months listed for that futures product. During this most actively traded period, the contract month is referred to as the front month. As futures contracts come near expiration, speculators are forced out of that contract or face taking delivery of that futures product. Taking delivery is having the physical product delivered to you. To avoid these deliveries, speculators usually liquidate their current positions in the soon to expire contract, the current front month, and then enter the same product in the back month, which is the next front month contract. This is referred to as a position rollover. As contracts would come near expiration, traders not only watch for volume, but also for open interest to change. Unfortunately, contract rollovers do not occur at the same time for every rollover. There are usually plus or minus 1 to 3 days of when prior contracts rolled over. Since there is no hard set rule for a contract to roll over on the same date each time, we as speculators need to follow volume and open interest to tell us when to trade the next contract in the cycle. What is now exactly the difference between open interest and volume? Open interest differs from volume in that volume is the number of contracts actually traded per day. Or in other words, volume represents the liquidity in the market since it counts the total number of contracts that are being traded during a specific period of time. Volume is always highlighted in real time. While open interest is the number of contracts entered into, either long or short, that have not been offset by transactions or exercise. Or in other words, open interest reflects the sum of all futures contracts that have been opened in the market but have not been liquidated by an offsetting transaction. Open interest is not highlighted in real time. Let's go through the simple example here to illustrate open interest. A buys one contract and B sells one contract. Open interest is now 1. C buys 5 contracts and D sells 5 contracts. Now the open interest increases to 6. A sells 1 contract and D buys 1 contract. So now the open interest decreases to 5. E buys 5 contracts from C, who sells 5 contracts, so the open interest stays at 5. So let's assume you are a daily income trader. A daily income trader needs liquidity, volume to get their orders filled. If a trader is trading in a contract with extremely low liquidity, they risk getting bad fills called slippage. For a daily income trader, they need to monitor the volume that is being traded in the front month contract. The day there is more volume in the next contract in the cycle, they must then begin to trade that contract to keep trading the most actively traded contract. A weekly or monthly income trader, on the other hand, needs a little bit more information. If a weekly or monthly income trader uses volume only to determine when to roll over their contract, they might have to get in their position one day and the very next day exit it and go into the next contract month in the cycle. This is because they are holding positions overnight. For weekly or monthly income traders, it is good to understand open interest as well as volume to help identify which contract month they should be trading in. Open interest is simply the number of outstanding contracts they have not been offset or delivered yet. So anybody holding open positions overnight is increasing the open interest. Large traders often roll over their contracts much sooner than other traders. They have such size, so the number of contracts to roll over, they could cause a distortion in price action if they waited until everybody else rolled over. One of these big traders is Goldman Sachs, who also manages a commodity index fund. This fund rolls over contract positions on the 5th to 9th business day of the month preceding the expiring contract. Do you think Goldman Sachs is considered to be a daily income trader or weekly or monthly income trader in this fund? Most definitely a weekly and monthly income trader would be the correct answer. Just knowing how big Goldman Sachs is, and there are several other commodity index fund firms, what do you think this is doing to the open interest of a contract when they exit their positions? The open interest has to be reduced significantly for that contract month. Where did the open interest go? To the next contract month in the cycle because of rules on how they must invest in the markets. This TradeStation radar screen screenshot illustrates this example in the crude oil market. It shows the crude oil market and 6 contract months in the cycle in the year 2020. Each contract month has its own volume and open interest. Today is the 8th of June 2020, hence the front month is CLN20, the July contract that expires in 2 weeks. Notice the volume in the July contract is 86,294 contracts, while the August and September contracts have much less. For a daily income trader, you would like to trade in the most actively traded contract. At this time, you would want to be day trading the July contract until there is more daily volume in the August contract than the July contract. As a daily income trader, you may wish to keep an eye on that open interest as well. While you want to trade the most actively traded month, you may want to be aware that since the open interest is already higher in August and September than July, that the rollover is coming soon. For a weekly and monthly income trader, you can view this radar screen screenshot a little differently. By looking at the open interest, we can see some of the larger traders have already left the July contract and are now positioned in the August, September and even December contract even before the volume has rolled over. Let's say you have been waiting for price to come into a monthly supply zone where you wish to sell and go short. You place your order using the July contract. Now you are filled on your order and within the next 2 weeks you will have to exit that July contract and roll over to the August contract to avoid delivery of 1,000 barrels of crude oil. Now you will have another transaction cost, which is basically the commission to the broker, and possibly miss getting filled on your August contract if price does not come back to your supply zone with your new order. If you had been looking at the open interest, you would have known that the larger traders had already left July and you would have placed your order in the August, September or even December contract. This would allow you to keep your crude oil contract for a much longer period of time instead of dealing with rollover in just 2 weeks. Whether you are a daily income trader or weekly or monthly income trader, understanding open interest and volume can help you select the contract you wish to trade. By reducing your transaction cost and possibility of missing your trade, you can position yourself by skipping over rollovers. Keep in mind that you can trade any contract month in the cycle, not just the first 2 contracts listed. As long as the contract month has sufficient volume, you can trade it. Let's go through the watch list requirements that we briefly touched upon in the previous lesson. This is now the criteria for daily income traders. In total, we have 4 criteria that have to be met: average daily volume, open interest, spread, and account size. So what is the requirement for average daily volume? The requirement is 40,000 contracts per day have to be traded or even more. What's the reason for that? The higher the average daily volume, the higher the potential of getting filled. The tighter the spread, the smaller the costs of opening a position. What's the requirement for open interest? Well, the requirement for open interest is 25,000 contracts or more. What's the reason for that? The higher the open interest, the higher the potential of getting filled. What's the requirement for spread? Ideally, less than 2 ticks of spread. We want to trade products where we quickly can open and close positions without having a big spread. That's the reason for that. What's the requirement for our account size? Well, as a rule of thumb, we should never use more than 50% of our account size as a margin per single contract. What's the reason for that? We want to trade products that suit our account size. We still want to have enough purchasing power after opening one position to open another position. Last but not least, let's define a criteria for weekly and monthly income traders. For weekly and monthly income trader, the criteria basically stays the same. We have average daily volume, open interest, spread, and account size. The requirement for average daily volume is 5,000 contracts or more being traded per day. The reason obviously stays always the same. For open interest, our requirement is 4,000 contracts or more per day. For spread, we should have a spread that is equal or smaller than 5 ticks. And for account size, we again use the same rule of thumb. We should never use more than 50% of our account size as a margin per contract. So that's it for this lesson. The next lesson covers everything you need to know about the economic calendar.